Giannis is elite of the elite on defense and their engine on offense, putting up 30, 10, and 5. First player to do it since Wilt Chamberlain. To me, Giannis is number one in the NBA MVP race right now.
Our buddy Tim Bontemps from ESPN does an MVP straw poll throughout the season. Last time we saw that straw poll, I believe Jason Tatum was in first place on the, and it's always good to look at it throughout the season because it gives it a snapshot of what everybody's thinking and where we are at that point in the season. Well, the new one dropped this morning, and the title of the article that he wrote was NBA MVP Straw Poll 2.0. Nikola Jokic is chasing history. Here's why he might capture it. Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell. That's the list. In the more than 76-year history of the NBA, only 3 players have won 3 consecutive MVPs, and it hasn't been done in nearly 40 years when Larry Bird last accomplished the feat, 1984 to 1986. Okay? And the reason that is broached is because in the straw poll, Nikola Jokic has 77 first place votes. The next closest in the MVP straw poll, which is of voters for said award, at this point in the season, is Giannis Antetokounmpo with 11 first place votes. Joel Embiid has 6 first place votes. Jason Tatum has 5, and only one other player got a first place vote, and that was Luka Doncic with 1 MVP vote. All right. In our first question of that's true, that might be true, that's ridiculous. Kevin, the MVP straw poll is exactly how it should be at this point.
That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, Chris. And I think with Jokic at number 1, he was 5th last time, the first time Bontemps did this vote on ESPN. So he goes from 5 to 1, 5 back in December, 1 now in the middle of February. It's ridiculous because of the discrepancy between Jokic with 77 first place votes and Giannis with only 11. And 3 of the 100 voters also left Giannis off of their ballot, that's definitely ridiculous as well. So I think with Giannis, he was second when Bontemps did this back in December. He's second again now. He's the only player in the top 5 where there's any consistency. Tatum goes from 1 to 4. Luka from 3 to 5. Embiid from 10 to 3. He was not even in the top 5 last time this was done. Giannis was 2 back in December. He's 2 again now. I'm shocked, though, that the differential between Jokic and Giannis is so significant. With 77 for Jokic, like you said, only 11 first place votes for Giannis. 2 stats went viral on NBA Twitter this week that I thought were pretty good numbers. StatMuse put out, Giannis is the first player since Wilt Chamberlain to average 30, 10, and 5 while shooting over 50% from the field. There's another stat I saw someone tweet out. Opponents are shooting only 41% when Giannis is the closest defender. That's one of the best marks in the NBA. That number, the latter one, inspired me to look up some of his second spectrum numbers. And here's a really good one for you, Chris. Giannis ranks number 1 in the NBA as the player defending the ball handler in pick and rolls, allowing only 0.76 points per pick and roll of the 283 players to defend over 100 pick and rolls. Giannis ranks number 1 of the 60 players to defend the big man in the pick and roll, allowing only 0.86 points per pick and roll. In other words, Giannis is the elite of the elite when he is the guy guarding the ball handler or the guy guarding the guy setting the screen. So he's defending better than Embiid or AD when he's defending the screen. He's defending better than Mikal Bridges and all these great perimeter guys when he's defending as the perimeter guy, because he can do everything on defense. He can defend ball screens. He can drop. He can blitz. He can switch. He can roam off ball and help Brook Lopez inside the paint. He can close out on shooters. He can lock down man-to-man on the perimeter. He's the most important player on the Bucks defense, not Brook Lopez. And I think defense has not entered the equation enough when we're talking about the most valuable player in the NBA. The fact that 77 for Jokic, he statistically and eye test, no matter what you want to use, is an average, above average defender. Giannis is elite of the elite on defense and their engine on offense, putting up 30, 10, and 5. First player to do it since Wilt Chamberlain. To me, Giannis is number one in the NBA MVP race right now. To me, he's number one. Jokic would be number two, Embiid number three, Tatum 4, Luka 5. That's my top 5 at this moment. Jokic is having an unbelievable season. This is no knock against him, but I'm shocked that it's 77-11 for Jokic over Giannis right now in MVP. That is absolutely ridiculous.
I'm glad you said that he is your number one, because I think what happens a lot of times when everybody's having this discussion is they can say, hey, look, I agree that Jokic should be the MVP, but it should not be that big of a margin, right? And then you say, well, all right, well, if they gave you a first place vote, who would you vote for? Like, oh, well, I'd vote for Jokic. It's like, well, what's the problem? Like, you just did what everybody else is doing right now, right? So I appreciate that you say, I'd have Giannis one. If I'm casting a vote, I'd have Giannis one. And I do wonder that when people see something like this, because it is impossible to separate it from context and the fact that it is 3 consecutive. I know that every season has to be looked at it by itself. But there
Which
is
is how I look at it. For just to interject there, it's clear. That's the way I look at it. It's just this season.
There's a history of the game that we always look at. It's just subconsciously, even if it's not outright. I do wonder if this will be where the resent kicks in and the picking apart starts to take place. And I'm not saying you're picking them apart. I'm saying you are bringing up something that is reality, which is if I am judging 2 players and they are both absolutely incredible offensively in what they bring to the table, but one is the best of the best on the other end of the court also, while the other is clearly not that. Has he gotten better as a defender? Sure. But he is not an elite defender that can be the engine for an elite defense. And Giannis is exactly that. He is the engine for an elite defense. And that's why they have the record that they do. They don't have the record they do because of offense, because their offense was in the 20s. And I don't know where it is right now, but for the majority of the season, it was in the 20s. Probably changed a lot since this 11-game win streak. But they've done it on the defensive end. And
number 2 defensive rating on the entire season right now.
And he's that guy. I know Lopez has had a really good year, but I promise you, if Giannis Antetokounmpo is not involved in that defense, it's not number 2.
Oh, definitely not. I mean, Brook Lopez is awesome at what he does.
Yes,
dropping in the pick and roll, using his size around the basket. But Giannis is that guy you can plug into. Like I just said, he is number 1 when defending the ball handler in pick and rolls, number 1 when defending the screener in pick and rolls. He can do literally anything on defense, anything, and he dominates.
I think Jokic is amazing. Again, I kind of feel like the way I felt last year. Honestly, Embiid's not getting the credit he deserves either. I just figured it would be. Look, this is not about anybody's wrong for thinking they're all great players, okay? I am surprised it is not more dispersed between not only Jokic and Giannis, but all 3 for that matter.
Does that suggest there's some groupthink potentially? Unlike,
no question.
I mean, could there be?
No question.
I mean, I don't know the pool of people Tim's asking. Like I know the NBA pool, has a lot of people from outlets overseas, right?
Yeah.
People who aren't on Twitter, right? Like that type of thing. I'm sure Tim's sample is terrific. But I do wonder if it's more internet leaning of a sample than the actual NBA sample that they use for the actual vote itself come April. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a thought there. But
unless you believe, you believe that just everybody independently came up with the same idea. That's hard to believe.
77, Chris.
Yeah,
and
I know.
And three people left Giannis off their ballot?
In fairness, the history of the award, and I know there have been outliers, the Westbrook one, even the Jokic one. Over the history of the league, you're usually on one of the best two teams, and you're one of the best players, and you're the best player on one of the best two teams.
Which is why with the Jokic at number one in the West right now,
right?
He's getting that nod, that third best record in the NBA behind Milwaukee, by the way.
And Tatum was the guy that was leading the last time the straw poll went on, right? So if you're looking at those best three players right now, the best three players on the teams with the best records are Jokic, Tatum, and Embiid. I don't know why the Tatum thing slipped so much. It's not like he hasn't still been awesome this year.
Yeah.
Jason Tatum's been fantastic.
He's like slipped slightly from the peak, but he's still been absolutely incredible.
He's the best player on the best team.
Oh, for sure. And I wonder if part of it is like with Tatum, like my reasoning for having him lower is simply due to the fact that Boston is so deep and so awesome, right? Like it's not like his numbers have slipped significantly, as you said. I think if you look at his numbers ever since the last time that poll was taken, it's probably not too far off, raw numbers wise or statistically, compared to what he was doing the first 2 months of the season. I'll try to pull that open real quick while I'm talking here,
and in fairness, they were burying people.
Yeah, well, that's part of it, I think.
At that point, like they were so far and away.
I just did pull it up here. So his first 29 games of the year. This was up until that first straw poll was published on December 16th. Tatum was averaging 30.2 points, 8.2 rebounds, 4.1 assists, shooting 36% from three, 47% from the field. Since then, very, very similar. Very similar. 31.1 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 5.1 assists per game. It's been like a slight dip in field goal percentage to 45.8, slight up. It's almost identical at 3-point percentage, 35.7. It's like his numbers are pretty much identical. And yet, because Boston has, had like a 3-game losing streak or like 2-3-game losing streaks during this stretch, maybe that impacted the vote. But I don't think it's that. I think more than anything else, it's probably just the fact that the Celtics are so big, so deep, and so strong that Tatum's getting knocked for not carrying a roster like Jokic, Embiid, or Giannis, more so than Tatum.
I think you make a very good point that people think less of Jokic's supporting cast. Right or wrong, they do. And so you are penalized because you are on a better team.
Which is the fascinating thing, Chris, right? Like I was looking at this morning in prep for the pod because I was curious about like the one knock people have on Giannis is his turnovers, right? He in his lower assists than Jokic. Jokic has like nearly double the assists per game. He doesn't turn the ball over as much as Giannis, despite having the ball in his hands far more often. So I was curious with Giannis's assist numbers because the Bucks don't shoot the ball well from three. They have a below average 3-point shooting team this season. That's not just because of Giannis's numbers; it's everybody else. On the year, when Giannis passes the ball to his teammates, they're shooting 32% on 3-pointers. When Jokic passes the ball to his teammates, they're shooting 39% on 3-pointers. When Jokic has a potential assist opportunity, which is what Second Spectrum calls like, a pass leading to a shot, it could be an assist. Those are converted into an actual assist 60.5% of the time. When Giannis has a potential assist, it's converted only 47.6% of the time, less than half, which is one of the worst marks in the entire league. So Milwaukee's teammates are not hitting threes this year, right? They're not converting Giannis's passes as often as they are with Jokic. And that's like, again, Jokic is a transcendent passer, the greatest passer of all time. There's a lot that goes into that number, including the accuracy of the pass, creating an opportunity for the player. However, the fact that the Bucks are shooting only 32% on Giannis's passes leading to 3-pointers, that is also, it correlates with the overall team percentage, which is subpar. So I think when you're talking supporting cast, the Nuggets have done a hell of a job building that team around Jokic with big, lengthy defenders, a bunch of guys who are high IQ players who know how to cut and move. Aaron Gordon, Brown, KCP, they got a really good supporting cast, man. Jamal Murray's looking like he's back. And Michael Porter Jr. looks like he's back. That supporting cast is really, really, really good.
But people are trained to believe that they would suck without him.
Yes, exactly. Which they're not good without him. Just like the Bucks aren't good without Giannis, and the Sixers aren't good without Embiid, because that's what happens when you pull out the best player on your team, right?
And that's what hurts Tatum, is because they can win games. Boston is better equipped to win basketball games, not at the highest level.
It does. It does hurt, and that's why I have Tatum fourth on my ballot as well, which it seems like voters do as well. I just think the big mistake is 77-11, Jokic over Giannis. That should be a lot tighter. And of course, like you said, Chris, Embiid probably deserves a bit more love as well. But I think Giannis has been underrated all year long, and it's baffling to me considering what he's done on both ends.
Well, and remember, I thought a couple weeks ago when we did that show about Embiid thrashing Jokic on national TV, that felt like a lot of people watch it, that actually could have an impact. Right?
Guess not.
And
Guess not.
He just
Guess
didn't.
not. Yeah.
Just didn't.